If we stand together, we'll never fall. We can make a difference and answer the call.
Well, hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the All Around Growth Podcast, a show that provides insight and tools to build the life and homestead of your dreams. My name is Rob Kaiser, and I am your host. Today is Friday, April 1st, 2022, and since it is a Friday, we are going to do an audience feedback show. Now, the audience feedback shows and this structure to the podcast is a little new, especially for those of you who are new to the show. This is not normally the way the podcast has worked, and if you like what you hear, I would encourage you to check out past shows. There's a link to all episodes in the show notes, and you can see where we have come from on this journey and get a better idea of where we are going. And accordingly, while the audience feedback is something that I've wanted to do for quite some time, I haven't had the structure that was really appropriate to get to it in an appropriate time frame. So I hope that this person who sent this in when I originally started asking for audience feedback is still listening, because this was originally sent back to me in July of last year with the suggestion for a podcast title called "When Does Doing Something You Love Turn Into a Burden?" So here's how I decided to approach this topic. I decided to do a search for that in pre-search and then transition that to Google. And since the search results, I searched for that exactly. When does something you love turn into a burden? With love in quotes. So when does something you, quote, love, close quote, turn into a burden? Pop that into pre-search, searched for it in Google. Because of the word love being in quotes, there were some undesirable search results. So I decided to change the search to when your passion turns into a burden. And like all search results, there's a myriad number of results that you can see. So in Google, what we see are the top 3 articles, and then a section titled "People Also Ask" with 4 different options of questions. And then we see additional articles followed by related searches at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so today we are going to cover the top 5 articles and the metadata description provided to or for Google. All right, so here we go. When you search for, quote, "when your passion turns into a burden," close quote, here is what we see. We've got about 152 million search results. And the first couple of articles read, generally it means that or the article is titled "When Passions Become Burdens" by Brian D. Buckley. Generally it means I've lost the focus, the goal of what it is I'm trying to do. The same thing happens when I get too wrapped up. And we've got a second article titled "Never Let Your Passion Turn Into a Burden" by The Odyssey. When your passions and hobbies begin to become stressful, remember to never lose sight of why you do them and why you started in the first place. And a third article titled "Why Passion Can Feel Like a Burden" by Ari Koinumi. Occasional breaks from your pursuits just to reflect and see how you'd feel from it is a good thing. If it's not for you, you won't miss it. Now, people also ask, how does passion lead to burnout? How should you deal with passion burnout? Why you shouldn't follow your passion? And should I follow my passion or money? Now, you can see the show notes for links to those questions and everything that follows by just simply going to the show notes. We also see, what if your passion becomes a chore? More than anything else, I fear that my passion will become a task, a burden, and something to be resented. In essence, it's a fear of my passion losing its... And finally, we've got an article that reads, When Passion Leads to Burnout, from the Harvard Business Review. When we equate what we love with not really working, it propagates a belief that if we love it so much, we should do more of it all the time. So let's look at those key points again, all right? Generally, it means that I've lost the focus, the goal of what I'm trying to do. When your passions and hobbies become too stressful, remember to never lose sight of why you do them and why you started in the first place. Occasional breaks from your pursuits, more passion becoming a task, a burden. Work we love with not really working. All right. So, guys, if you find yourself asking some of these questions, it's time to take a deep, hard look at what we're doing. All right? Because this is hard. You know, this is going to be I feel like I've got to say some things and share some things that might not be the easiest things to hear, because the question that was posited, right, is when does something you quote love turn into a burden? Right? So if you find yourself asking that question in the first place, you're probably towing that line of having that loved thing turn into a burden. Especially if you're writing to me and the word love is in quotes. Right? Like, my first suggestion is taking some deep personal time to reflect and write about the very thing in question here. What is this thing that you quote love? Like, what is it? And why do you love it? You know, I suspect that writing, the act of writing, I suspect that it's not foreign to you. But perhaps you are not consistent with it. So in this case, if this is a question that troubles you, sit down and make it happen. All right, stop making excuses. You know, we all make time to do things in life. All right? We all make time to find time to do these other things in life. Oftentimes, those other things are the very things that prevent us from getting to where we want to be, achieving the goals that we have, because they don't serve us as well as other actions that might in the moment. But yet, we continue to do them. We continue to engage in the same old patterns of behavior that we find ourselves complaining about when we ask questions like, when does doing something you, quote, love turn into a burden? I imagine that if you're asking yourself a question like this or any of those other questions that people also may ask, it already has. And so that's the answer to the question. When does doing something you love turn into a burden? Well, if you're asking the question to try to figure that out, it's too late. Okay, so, you know, it's too late. So what? What? You know, is that the end of the world? No. It just means that you're in a sticky situation. So what do you do? All right, we already decided that we are going to write. And here's how you do it. How do you write? Well, like what do you do? I don't know what to write about. All right, that's understandable. When does doing something you love turn into a burden? What is the thing that you love? Why do you love it? Write about that first for 25 minutes. Then when you're done, take a 5-minute break. Stand up, walk around, stretch your hamstrings, drink some water, make a tea. If you're feeling good, go back and write for another 25 minutes. If you're not feeling all that well about the 25 minutes that you just spent writing, pick it up again later in the afternoon or tomorrow. Right? That's how we start. Since we've already identified that the thing that we love turns into a burden, otherwise we wouldn't be asking ourselves this question, let's revisit the key points from the 5 different articles, and I would also suggest reading those articles as fuel for the writing that you're going to do. And if you don't do it, that's fine too. But understand that by not taking action on the current thing that is a challenge, that simply means that you prefer your current set of circumstances versus the circumstances and the untapped potential that could come from the actions that you haven't taken. It's really important that we understand this. We all make choices. So do that writing in that way and read the 5 articles that will be linked to in the show notes that provide key points such as when doing something you love turns into a burden, it generally means that I've lost the focus. I've lost the goal of what it is that I'm trying to do. When your passions and hobbies begin to become stressful, remember to never lose sight of why you do them and why you started in the first place. Occasional breaks from your pursuits just to reflect and see how you'd feel away from it is a good thing. And more than anything else, if you fear that your passion will become a task or a burden and something to be resented, we've got to figure out why that is the case. And that is why we write. And if we equate work that we love with, not really working, it can propagate a belief that If we love it so much, we should do more of it. And then we end up working all the time, getting closer to burnout, and that's not healthy either. At the end of the day, we got to remember to take time for ourselves. We've also got to understand that we are the most important persons in our lives. It's kind of like the old oxygen mask analogy. We've got to make sure we put our own on first before we help others put theirs on. We've got to take care of ourselves first if we want to take care of others. We have to love we have to love ourselves first if we want to love and serve others. And really, the best way that we can love and serve ourselves is by loving and serving God and understanding what God's purpose is for our life and trying to implement that in our life. So guys, remember that you are the most important person in your life because it's time that we start acting like it, myself included. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.
In a world of pain, what can I do? The needs are many, and answers a few. People turn away, and I wonder why. If I can help somebody, then I want to try. People may think that it's odd that I believe in friendship and love. And truth is always the best way to the world that may seem odd. I'm an odd fellow. I'm an odd fellow. I'm an odd fellow. If we stand together, we'll never fall. We can make a difference and answer the call. We know the times are wasting every day, and we can help somebody along the way. People may think that it's odd that I believe in friendship and love. Truth is always the best way to the world that may seem odd. I'm an odd fellow. You're an odd fellow.